stream, and I didn't take the microphone. So, okay, thank you so much, Peter. So, welcome to the Technology Park of Ljubljana, the venue of this great event, Pioneers Ljubljana. Pioneers Festival, as you probably know, is one of the biggest startup festival in Europe, in Central Europe, and it's happening in 2 weeks. So today we will have a short event with wonderful speakers, an introduction of the festival, and also we'll have 3 pitches, the pitches of the startup ideas. And the winner of this pitch will get a free ticket for the festival in 14 days. So we already got 3 startups applied, but we are offering you a chance. We have 2 more slots available. So if everyone and anybody here has the courage to pitch, you can, get yourself together, and then you can join the rest of the 3, and maybe you'll get a ticket to the festival. So I give now the word to the ambassador of the festival and the member of the core team of the Pioneers Festival, Mavic, to shortly introduce you the festival. Here's the mic, and here is the remote, and this is it. 1, 2.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, good evening, guys. So, which camera actually now is the live stream? I didn't even know that there's a live stream. That's you? Okay, cool. Both? All right, difficult. Hi, my name is Marius, and I originally come from Germany. I've been living in Austria now for 10 years, and in between I actually lived in Slovenia for more than a year. So almost feels like coming home here. I'm really happy to be with you here, as I happen to work at Pioneers, now again for half a year. I originally co-founded the organization 6 years ago, when we started as a student organization doing small events like this one, first in Austria and then also across CE and then later across Europe. Meanwhile, for the last 5 years, we've been doing this one big event that you probably have heard of. I mean, who of you has heard about Pioneers Festival? Well, that's pretty much everyone, actually. Pretty cool. So not much for me to tell you about, I guess. Today we're going to have a little bit of talks coming from you guys, I think. Is that right? Great. And then in between, I'll tell you a little bit more what to expect from the festival that will happen in 2 weeks' time. So what I think for the moment, we should probably already start right away with you guys. Is that okay? I thought we'd do it maybe after the talks, or as you prefer.
Yeah, let's go to the point. Okay, the first speaker is Tristan. Okay, he's from the Google. Yeah, the product philosopher. I'll take, maybe you can shortly introduce yourself, and I will switch the laptops, okay? Yeah.
All right, I'm Tristan. I had a company called Apsure a few years ago, and we were acquired by Google. It was sort of a talent acquisition, and I became really interested in the last 2 to 3 years in the ethics of product design and the ethics of people who build products and affect 1 billion other people. Particularly because I come from Silicon Valley, the heart of where all these products that actually do affect 1 billion people are made. So normally I'm giving sort of talks to those audiences, but I think it's just as relevant anywhere in the sense that we all have this responsibility in how we influence other people's lives. Oh yeah, 1 sec. Cool. So I'm just going to talk about design ethics, and the take-home message is how do we be responsible about how we affect other people's lives. So this insight came to me that for the first time in history, there's this really unique ratio where a bunch of white guys living in San Francisco who look a lot like this, mostly between the ages of 20 and 35 years old, make these choices every day. They go to work at a handful of companies, and they make these choices, and it affects how 1 billion people spend their time. What do I mean by that? Well, I feel like with technology, so much of my time is just being spent on various things, whether it's email. I feel like the artist Banksy summed this up very well. He had this tweet that said, "Don't let them take all your time away." I often feel like I'm tugging at my time with all these different services. I often feel like I'm drowning in my email. And I often find myself in situations like this, where this photo comes in from Facebook, and when I get tagged in this photo, this is possibly one of the most compelling emails a human being can receive, right? Because when this comes in, I'm not just going to click see photo, I'm actually going to spend the next 20 minutes about every single time. Or, I'll find myself, checking my email, my phone, and then I'll find myself less than 30 seconds later, I'll be checking it again. And why are we doing this? I mean, I was probably even doing it sitting in that chair about a minute ago. I mean, it's crazy. So why is this kind of behavior happening? Well, we have to be honest with ourselves that when we're designing products, we're tapping into the deep psychology of users. And the deep psychology that's going on here, well, to explain that, I'll give you a hint. What do you think makes more money in the United States than movies, all of the movies industry, baseball, which is the big sport in the United States, and theme parks, like Disneyland, combined? So movies, game parks, and baseball combined. What makes more money than that? Any guesses? Computer games. A lot of these things do. I don't actually know about computer games. In this case, the answer that's related to this is slot machines. I'm not talking about all casinos. I'm talking about the slot machines at casinos, which is crazy. So do you guys know what slot machines are, the difference? So slot machines, you pay with like a quarter. You're not paying with $100 bills. You're paying with a quarter. And you hit a button and you get a result. And it results in people spending all this money, right? And it's incredibly addictive. There's a great book called Addiction by Design by Natasha Schull at MIT. And she says that people become addicted to slot machines 2 to 3 times faster than any other kind of gambling. It's very, very powerful. And the key is that I have a slot machine in my pocket. This is a slot machine. Every single time I check my phone, I'm playing the slot machine to see what am I going to get, right? Every time you scroll a news feed, you're playing the slot machine to see what's going to come next on the news feed. Let's play the slot machine. Every time you tap on a photo in a slideshow, whether it's a Business Insider slideshow or a slideshow on Facebook, you're playing the slot machine to see what's going to come next. I could go on and on. Dating websites, swipe, swipe, swipe. Did I get a match? Swipe, swipe, swipe. It's a slot machine. There's slot machines throughout the dynamic of your phone, which is crazy because it results in us spending a lot of time. And the reason for this that we have to talk about, we don't often talk about, is that we live in an attention economy. And in an attention economy, whether you're building a meditation app to help people meditate, or you're building an educational website to help people learn about things, or you're building an addictive game, you're competing for one finite resource, which is people's time and attention. You're competing to take time from people's lives. And we're really good at this. There's an entire industry that's built up around how to teach people essentially persuasive psychology. The reason this issue is so concerning to me is because I studied at a lab at Stanford called the Persuasive Technology Lab with Professor B.J. Fogg, who pioneered a lot of these principles. So I know how these principles work. And there's hundreds of people, I mean thousands of people who go to work every day, and it's their job to get you to come back. It's their job to get you to click. It's their job to get you to stay, right? It's not evil or anything like that. It's just literally that's the incentives. That's the attention economy. So, and it results in things like this, where, I don't know if you know what this is. This is the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Do you guys know what this is? Yeah? Okay. So in the United States, this was a big social cause, but obviously for an important disease, and raising money for it, and it was this viral campaign where people poured ice over people's heads and videotaped it. And it's a great social cause, and that's not the question here. The question is, are these the rules we want people to play by to win? Should this be the game you have to play to win? Should you have to compete for attention? And it kind of feels like this is the world that we're converging upon. This is from the movie WALL-E, if you've never seen it, and it's in reference to, I think, kind of an Aldous Huxley version of the world of Brave New World, where there's a great book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, written in 1982, and the author compares George Orwell's vision for the future, which is 1984, the famous Big Brother, Orwellian control, banning books, limiting people's freedom, constraining people through direct power. And then there was always this second vision of the future, which was this Huxley vision of the future, where, in his words, the technologies that we use would undo our capacities to think, and we would actually love these technologies that actually took away our autonomy. And he was worried about that, and in fact, he summarized it by saying they failed to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. And what he's really getting at is that they failed to take into account our real psychological seductive, things that are seductive to our psychology. Because it just really works. It's just the stuff that we're built for. So what do we do about this? Because it leaves us in this all or nothing relationship with technology. We're either on and we're connected, but then we get distracted all the time. Or we have to say, forget it, let me just leave my phone at home, right? Let me take that app off my phone completely because it's just distracting me all the time. So you don't have a choice where you can have it and then have the relationship you want with it, right? In other words, we're either distracted or we're missing out on the benefits of technology completely. FOMO's fear of missing out. Might not translate very well. So this is kind of a crappy menu, right? Like, this is the menu to live your life by. You're either distracted or you're missing out on all the benefits of technology. So we need to restore choice. And to do it, it's actually not going to come from human beings who are using the products, because then we're relying on the very brains and willpower that are being broken by this system. So we're going to need help to get choice back, and we're going to need help from designers, the people who make products, because they're the ones that are essentially giving us choice in the way we relate to all of this seductive stuff. So I want to walk through a couple ways that can happen. So let's take an example that we all face. I'm sorry for some of you who were at the Podium conference because I'm repeating some slides here, so apologize. Hopefully it'll be more entertaining this time. So let's take an example of interpersonal messaging. So in interpersonal messaging, we all face a situation where, let's say you have Nancy on the left and she's working on a document, and you have a person on the right who remembers, I need to ask Nancy for this document so that I can do some work, right? And what does he do? This is John on the right, Nancy on the left. Well, John just blows away her attention. He bulldozes her attention by sending her a message, right? This is what we do every day, millions of times a day. And there's a serious cost to this because there's a great field called interruption science, which researches the cost of interruptions. And this woman, Gloria Mark, has shown that it takes us about 23 minutes to refocus after any interruption. We actually cycle through 2 other projects before we get back to the original project we were doing. So someone interrupts us, we cycle through one project, then another project, and then we get back to what we were doing. The second thing her research shows is that it actually causes us to self-interrupt more often, that the more external interruptions we get, it appears to increase the rate of self-interruption. So it's almost like it's speeding up the internal clock rate of interruption. Okay, so what do we do about this? Well, design can help us with this problem in a way that our own psychological biases in this situation can't. So how would that work? Here's a suggestion. So let's say that the same situation shows up, except this time that Nancy can mark that she's focused. We're going to put a new choice on life's menu for Nancy. So now she's got a new choice, and she can be focused. Now, when John remembers, I need to ask Nancy for that document, he still has the need, so he needs to open up that window, dump the thought, and get it off of his mind right now before he forgets. Except this time the messages are held until Nancy goes unfocused. So Nancy can still be focused and do what she needs to do, and John can get on with his day and know that the messages are going to get delivered. Now you're all thinking, but hold on a second, Nancy's never going to do this because she's thinking, what if I miss something important, right? And that's solved by making sure that anyone who messages her has a clear way of opting in consciously to interrupt that person. So it's a conscious interruption by default as opposed to an accidental or mindless interruption by default. So we did a second thing here too when we fixed the design, which is that we changed the question that we're asking when we're designing like a messaging application. The way that, literally I interviewed the Facebook Messenger product manager at Facebook, and he said that our goal with Facebook Messenger is you give us the message and then we deliver your bleeping message. That's our value proposition. So we're designing to just send the message efficiently. And if this was your design goal, if that's how you define success, then whether or not people get interrupted doesn't really matter because you're still helping people send messages efficiently. According to your goal, you're still A-okay, right? So we upgraded the goal and we said, well, what is communication really about? And we're caring about, from a design perspective, a broader set of values about what it means for 2 people to communicate well. So we did that. So another example where we don't have choice is there's a famous behavioral economics experiment I really love, where if you give people a bowl of soup, and you give a bunch of people sitting down at a table a bowl of soup. And these are just a bunch of people who opted into a study, and they sit down and they're just chatting and they're eating from their bowl of soup. And what they don't know is that 2 of the bowls have a little tube at the bottom of them. And the tube is actually refilling more soup as they eat it. So it's a bottomless bowl of soup. And they don't know this because it's just filling it in really slowly. And so we think how much soup we eat is a matter of choice, that like we are choosing how much we eat. And it's people's responsibility to choose how much they eat, right? But it turns out that if you have a bottomless bowl, the people who had a bottomless bowl consumed 76% more soup, and they underestimated the calories that they consumed by like 170 calories. And I say this because a lot of the technology we use looks like bottomless bowls. We just have these bottomless feeds that are specifically designed to just keep you scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. It's not like it takes up your life, but we probably scroll a little bit longer than maybe we intended to a lot of the time. So how do you fix this? Well, you give people back a choice about how big a plate they want. Instead of giving someone a bottomless bowl by default, you give people a bowl where they set the bottom. So how might that work? Well, imagine if your email cared about how much time you wanted to spend, and it asked you before you got there, how much time do you want to spend your email today? And you said, I want to spend this much time, and then it was on your team to help you spend that amount of time on your email. So it cared about your relationship with email. What if you had a certain relationship with a website that you used a little bit too much and you wanted to monitor that use, and you said, when you went to that website, after you said that's the one I want to monitor, it helped you by reflecting back how often you'd been there, and at the beginning of the day maybe asking you how big a plate do you want, how much time do you want to spend, and then it said when you went there past that amount, it actually just changed the color a little bit or made you more aware or mindful that you were going past this plate size, right? You can imagine different ways that this could show up. And we do this in other kinds of technology, like cars, where we know that there's sort of important information to reflect back to you while you're using the product. We could do this with things like phone screens, right? And again, we'd be changing the goal from helping people to navigate things efficiently and just getting to where they want to go as fast as possible, to caring about helping people spend their time well. I'll go through one last example, which is a different kind of example, which is around the way people make choices, which is mediated by technology. So left to our own devices, we often are just jumping from one task to the next, to the next, to the next, and so we choose based on the way a menu presents choices to us. So when you book flights, how many times have you been on flight, or you booked a flight, and then you find yourself at an airport at like 11 o'clock at night, and you've got like a 4-hour layover, and you're wondering, like, why didn't I just get the other flight? Like, that didn't matter, the 40 euros, the difference in cost, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Well, Hipmunk is a website that lets you search for flights, and they realize that there's more to just the price, there's also the human experience of travel. And so they let you sort prices by default based on agony, meaning the experience, how much time is it going to take, how likely is it that airline gets delayed, or red eyes and things like that. So it realizes that there's other values at stake and sorts choices accordingly. Another example, what if you were booking a meeting on Calendar, and in the bottom of Google Calendar there's this little room selector thing, and what if instead of saying, well, let's help people make a choice about which room they want, let's ask what would be the most fulfilling way for 2 people to catch up? What is the best venue or place for 2 people who need to catch up? And maybe a walking meeting is great, maybe a room is great, maybe jumping jacks for 10 minutes is great, I don't know. I mean, there's a broader set of options. We're choosing from menus. Another example is, let's say you told Maps your values and you said, I want more exercise in my life. And so when you search for public transportation directions and it showed you, here's the different subways and buses you could take, and right now it also puts the Uber there so you can see how much it would cost. Well, what if it said, because you said you want more exercise in your life, it just also showed you that there was another option for walking, and this is how many calories it would burn. And if instead of that you said, actually I don't value exercise, what I really value is productivity and getting stuff done. So what if instead of that it could say, well, here's this other option for walking, and you've got a 35-minute walk and you've got this 28-minute podcast, so maybe you want to finish that, or maybe you want to call your mom, or there's something else you wanted to get done. So there's ways that technology could be more on your team to help you live the life you want to live. So again, what we're doing here is we're changing the goal from a transactional goal of just saying, let's get from point A to point B efficiently, to let's say, let's help you get from point A to point B well. So what does well mean? Well can mean a lot of things. As well is a sort of a sneaky way of talking about a really big question, which is, what is the human experience about? What is the art of living? What does a life well lived? What does time well spent really mean for someone? And you can't talk about that without invoking 90-year-old Zen Buddhist monks. So this is Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if you know who Thich Nhat Hanh is. He's an international spokesperson for mindfulness and meditation. He's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And about a year and a half ago, he came to Google because he was very concerned. He came to the Silicon Valley because he was very concerned about how people's attention was being affected by phones, essentially. And we were given basically 2 hours of his time. I helped organize a meeting between him and his 9 Buddhist monk handlers and all of these leading product designers that I could find. So I ran around for like 3 days, and I emailed all these leading product designer people across the company. And we had like the lead designers of Gmail and lead designers of Android and lead designers of Google Glass, and we put them in a room on one side of the table. On the other side of the table were 9 Buddhist monks. And we talked. It was the most amazing meeting. And we talked for 2 hours, actually, about what you're really designing for. What are the human values at stake when you're designing something? You're not just designing to do a search. You're designing for someone's life experience. And this does happen in rooms besides with monks. One of my favorite examples, which I talked about at the podium, was this company, Couchsurfing. You might know Couchsurfing. It was actually bigger than Airbnb until about a year ago. But very much like Airbnb, it's a service where if you're looking for a place to stay, people who have extra space in their house can basically put on a marketplace on Couchsurfing that they have an extra place to stay. So it's kind of a marketplace for people who are looking for a place to stay with people who have a place to stay. So if you're designing Couchsurfing, what do you think your goal might be? Well, you would think that you'd count success if someone who's looking for a place to stay gets matched with someone who has a place to stay, right? If you do that, like someone was looking, they found a place, like we did it, right? That we won. But that's kind of like the other goals we had before, where that's only caring about the transaction of 2 people staying with each other. So instead, Couchsurfing actually measures in their success whether 2 people actually have lasting positive experiences with each other. And they do that by asking a deeper question about what a positive experience is, and they fascinatingly came up with a way to measure this. And it's called net orchestrated conviviality, and I'll tell you how it works. And the way it works is if you have 2 people who are meeting up in Paris, so let's say that I was going to Paris and I was looking for a place to stay, and they count the number of days that I was staying there. So let's say I was staying for 4 days in Paris. So they count the number of days, which is 4 days, and then they say how many hours were in those 4 days. How many hours occurred where these 2 people spent time together? And they get the exact number of hours, and they ask both people how positive those hours were. So what you get to start with is this number of positive hours 2 people spent together. And then what they do is they subtract all of the hours people spent on the website, because that's an cost to people's lives. Why in the world will we count hours spent searching for a place to stay as success? They take that as a cost, and then what you're left with are the new number of net positive hours, the net positive contributions to people's lives that they have created. These are new hours in people's lives that literally would have never existed if Couchsurfing didn't exist. They actually subtract the number of hours that, they subtract people who would have found a place to stay with them anyway, meaning if they use something besides Couchsurfing. They just want to know the number of new positive hours that Couchsurfing created. And I think this is amazing. I mean, can you imagine if the whole world measured success this way? This might sound a little bit out there, but imagine a whole world that actually did measure its success that way. Like, imagine a world that cared not just about you clicking and transacting and doing stuff and spending time on things, but it actually cared about you getting whatever it is that you were looking for. So imagine like dating sites that instead of clicking, measuring the number of messages that got sent back and forth or swipes that got swiped, It actually measured the number of people who found whatever it is they were looking for. Right? Imagine if LinkedIn didn't measure the number of connections that were created because people just add each other impulsively, but instead measured the number of people who found jobs that they were really glad to get, right? Or they found articles that they were really glad to read, and they subtracted all the time spent on the articles people felt were not great uses of time. It'd be a very different world if they really cared about you spending your time well. But to do that, you'd also need a new system, because you're probably thinking that today's economy and the internet is measured in time spent. The way we all build new companies and sell them to investors in terms of investment is by saying, here's our growth numbers, here's our traction. People are spending more time, more clicks, more engagement this month than last month. We got a 10% lift in engagement, right? So we need a new system, but we've done this before in other industries. We've done it before with organic, where before organic, if there was a bunch of farmers competing and they found out they could use some pesticides, some chemicals to lower the price, to get the lowest possible price, then if some farmer comes along and says, I have another apple, but I'm not going to use those chemicals, until there's organic, he's just selling a more expensive apple. So people don't know to make that choice. But when you say, no, this is a different kind of apple, then people value it differently. Well, what if we could value things differently? Same thing with LEED certification, if you know that. That's a building standard that stands for green buildings, different values. So you're not just comparing office space based on price, you're comparing it based on what values it stands for. Well, what if we had something like that for technology? What if we had something where instead of being valued for the amount of engagement or time you steal from people's lives, you could be valued for actually helping people spend their time well? And doing that would amount to moving from a world that's run entirely on time spent to a world that's run entirely on time well spent. So that is what I wanted to talk to you about, and the message is, let's be responsible in how we shape people's lives. Sorry. Thanks.
For some questions, are there any questions? Okay, first Matej.
Do you think we're going to see any of those features you showed us?
I think it's really tricky. So the reason I'm around here giving presentations about this stuff is because I think within big companies, whether it's Apple or Google or Facebook, there's not a perception that people care enough about it. It's almost like saying to Walmart, you should really introduce organic before consumer demand was there. So the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a different conversation about how technology affects people's time, and that people see that it's not just a matter of better self-control, but that they actually want more help managing their time. So I think that they will do it, that companies will have these kinds of changes in their products, but it comes from more consumer demand, which might sound ineffectual because you're probably all asking, like, well, how would I demand this? What could I do? But my goal is just to start the conversation, so it's something that people are talking about.
Okay, thank you. Another question?
Maybe it's like a plea to product managers. It seems like it's quite a simple way for a product manager to set himself apart from the rest. Like when we had some of those early features in Gmail, right? That if you just do it, the product is gonna then be more appreciated by the end user. Do you really think that that user pull has to happen first before a PM is likely to want to implement?
So this is it's a multi-level problem, and it's also a very diffuse problem. It's complicated both vertically and horizontally. If the CEO of any of these big companies said, we care about this, it would be unclear, I think, how to implement a lot of these solutions. I don't think, unless the product designers themselves knew how to do these kinds of things. So on one level, let me start differently. So we said if product designers just did this, we could just solve the problem. So you're right, the problem is that product managers respond to different incentives. And their current incentives are usually to increase the user growth, not to help people spend their time well. In fact, oftentimes increasing user growth means the opposite of what we're talking about. So even if they really were passionate about doing these kinds of things, they'd be limited by what they're measured on, because their peers get their bonuses based on whether they grow quarter over quarter, some engagement metric. And so until the number and the thing that we're measuring is different than what it is now, they can't do it. In some cases they can if they just care about it. So the message is for designers, but there's sort of a limit for what they can do. And so that's why I jumped to the CEO thing, because then the CEO could say, well, we're going to measure something differently. But then they respond to another audience, which is if they're a public company, how the market responds, and if they're a private company, how the investors view the success of the company as being growing in engagement. And so it's a complicated problem that goes all the way down. That's why I'm trying to start this conversation. And that's why also you do need to have something like an organic type label eventually to value things differently.
Okay,
Cool.
Another one. Yeah, here.
Yeah, but there is a lot of services that their business model is based on people spending a lot of time. For example, like Facebook is, I think, such a service. Because they just try to serve as many ads as possible. And most of the content now is becoming like ads. So if they would follow, for example, them, and it's many other services, if they would follow this rule, they would have to change their business model, I think, completely.
That's right.
Okay, that was a short answer. Okay. Another question? Okay, no? Then a big applause for
Okay, cool.
perfect speech. Thank you. Okay. Next, our beautiful speaker is Gina. Hello. Gina is a specialist in connecting big brands, big companies with startups. She's not a construction worker, but she's building bridges between startups and big companies. And yeah, she's in some way a pioneer in this field. So let's hear it for Gina.
Hi.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for, oh no, technology fail at the tech conference. Thank you for so much for having me here. So I am here today to talk to you about how to build your startup. But I really don't have any idea how to tell you to build your startup. But I've built my own company over the past 3.5 years. And I still have a company and I'm still in business and I have about a team of 8 people. So I have been somewhat successful. So I want to kind of talk about this topic by just sharing my story with you and what I did to start a company that bridges the worlds of big brands and early stage tech startups. So I want to bring you through my journey. So in the beginning, I think I was always a very curious young child, kind of always a problem solver. I believe that I was the first person to invent the shampoo and conditioner all in one. When I was about 4 years old in the early 80s, I would combine the shampoo and conditioner in one of my little toys and put it in my hair because I thought it would save much more time. I didn't like bath time. So I think I always kind of had this drive. I also put shoes on my dog, so all my ideas weren't good. But I was always kind of a problem solver. So kind of my journey throughout life, I went to university and I was very interested in advertising and kind of fascinated by Madison Avenue, and I really wanted kind of a big agency job. So I studied advertising in undergrad. I went and got my master's in international communications and marketing. And then I went and I worked for some very large agencies, worked on some very big brands. I won some awards. And then I kind of took this little slightly separate journey that involves technology and startups, and that's kind of what inspired me. I live in the East Village, so after kind of college and university, graduated, moved to New York. That's where I live today. And up until about 3 years ago, I did have a job at kind of some of the biggest agencies in the world. And they were very kind of traditional, which kind of set me up in my path. So the situation that kind of existed when I first was inspired to start my company, Evolution, was such that I'm working at the big agency. I'm working for brands like Procter & Gamble, like United Parcel Service, like Pfizer, so really big Fortune 100 brands. And they all had the same 3 objectives, no matter what agency I was at. They needed to build reach. The more people we could reach, the better. It was all about scale. So my job was to figure out how I could place their advertising in front of as many eyeballs as possible. That's how I was measured on success. Secondly, they wanted to connect. They wanted to drive engagement. So they wanted to start a dialogue. They wanted to make sure that people were reading articles on the UPS website or talking about Pampers if you're P&G. And then finally, they wanted to do all of that, reach people and connect with them in order to affect their behavior, which means get them to buy more products. So those were my goals. So there were a couple problems I started to notice with those goals. I was at the agency for about 6 years, 7 years, and I started to notice some big problems with my career choice. First, there was the reach problem. So what's happening, and this is happening globally, but especially definitely in the US market, the price to buy advertising, and especially TV advertising, which with all the talk of digital, most dollars are still being funneled into TV by big brands. The cost of an advertising spot was going up year over year. It still is increasing. And yet the number of people watching TV was going down. So as a brand, we just had to keep paying more and more to reach less and less people. So not a very sustainable model, but something that really didn't seem to have any end in sight anytime soon. So that's kind of problem number 1 that I was faced with and my clients were faced with. 2, they were trying to connect. I think we can all agree, and I think it builds perfectly on Tristan's presentation, we're very distracted, and actually making a connection with a consumer is incredibly difficult. We're multitasking all the time, and it's really difficult to break through. Kind of all my briefs, I would always have an objective from the client that said, break through the clutter. And it's just another set of Pampers and nappies. But we had to break through, but it was getting really hard to break through. And finally, if we were able to somehow pay a ton of money to reach a ton of people, finally get them to see our ad, they didn't believe us. Nobody trusts advertising anymore. And as the rise of kind of digital advertising and mobile advertising and online video, which everyone's like, that's where it is now. You got to get online video in front of your consumers. Trust is actually even worse. So banner ads where all the money's going in, nobody wants to buy your ad after they see your banner ad. And yet this was my job. This was what I was paid to do. So that was a problem. So I was currently working, for a very big brand, for UPS actually, and I found myself spending this much on one spread in the Wall Street Journal. So $250,000 US to buy one page, and they were giving us a deal in the Wall Street Journal. And I was doing this kind of a couple times a day, around campaign launches. So I was pouring money into print ads. And I said, well, I'm trying to reach small businesses. That's what UPS was going after. They wanted to reach small businesses and kind of connect with a small business owner to get them to use their logistics and parcel services. And I said, well, what do small businesses really need, right? UPS is trying to connect with them. They're throwing a bunch of advertising on them. But what do they really need? So while this is all going on in my head, I'm having like a total internal conversation about life and where's my life going, and I'm single and I'm in New York and what am I doing with my life? I start to have these own startup ideas. I was getting really interested in the startup scene in New York. Again, not the best ideas. I wanted to create an umbrella sharing company. So take an umbrella, leave an umbrella. So you'd never have to buy your own umbrella because I kept forgetting my umbrellas in the cab. So that was kind of an idea I had, and I got rid of the dog shoes. So I started going to meetup groups. And there were a ton of meetup groups. Every night I could go to a different kind of startup technology meetup group. And I was going to a couple that were B2B focused, and I was finding there were a ton of startups, SaaS and enterprise solutions that were being developed specifically targeted to help small businesses. So a lot of them were created by small business owners around problems that they had. So what I was finding was that here UPS is, and their mission is to make the life of a small business owner better. we care about small business owners, so we're going to put all this messaging out in the market, and we're going to try to make their lives better. But really what we were doing was just spraying them with ads. And I was hearing about their problems, and I was seeing some solutions being created. And we were putting stuff like, an Olympic athlete's going to deliver your packages. And I love UPS. I hope, UPS doesn't watch this and get upset. Amazing company doing amazing things, care about sustainability. But from an advertising perspective, this is an example of something we did where, we put a giant box. And this was in an Asian market, as like a PR stunt. And this giant box costs like a ton of money. And meanwhile, there were companies like Oscar being created. Oscar is a new way for small businesses and entrepreneurs to get healthcare, because healthcare in the US is a crazy difficult system to navigate. So there are companies trying to help small businesses simplify that process. Companies like Zenefits, helping small businesses create really easy, seamless platforms for you to offer benefits to your employees. Companies like Fancy Hands. Fancy Hands is an awesome app that lets anybody have a personal assistant. And you kind of pay this monthly fee, and they'll take care of all sorts of things that a PA would take care of. But as a small business, you probably can't afford to hire one full time. Here's a startup that can help you do that. And Bespoke was a new type of web browser for designers to use to make their lives easier. So, you've got a problem, you've got this brand on one side really trying to connect with consumers, and their head was in the right place to help these small businesses, but their answer is always advertising. And you've got these startups and these technologists building truly valuable platforms. So I said, something's missing. There's got to be a bridge. I want to build a bridge between the worlds of Madison Avenue and these big brands and what's happening in this startup world. I found kind of a problem, and I thought there was an opportunity. So I met my co-founder. We were introduced by a mutual friend. He had the same exact vision, really inspiring guy. This is the lobby of the Ace Hotel. I met him for the first time on a Thursday. We got to talking for a few hours, and I quit my job on Monday. And while we were talking, we kind of started playing this what if game. And we said, man, what if Kodak had acquired Instagram? I mean, their business would be surviving. What if Blockbuster had taken that investment that they were offered in Netflix? I'm sure closing their stores would have been a strategy instead of kind of the fall of an empire. What if, every time you got on a flight and you had a Dell computer, you got free access to GoGo? Now you have a reason to buy a Dell computer. I don't know if there is one outside of that. And we're starting to see it happen. There were companies in the market who were making these kind of leaps of faith, like Intuit, which bought the kind of personal finance site Mint. Or what we saw with Under Armour, which is an apparel company targeted towards fitness and health. They bought a set of applications targeted at running and health and tracking your health. So it would happen, but this wasn't easy. So I said, all right, I want to build a business around this. And I quit my job, and my partner and I came together, and we said, let's build a startup that actually helps startups connect with big brands. So we had to go through a few things. Is this a business is the first question. It's very noble. I think I'm doing a good thing. But ultimately, can I actually quit my job and afford to quit it and make money off of this? So I needed to know if there was a business model, figure out what kind of value I was going to create for the market, and then see how I productize and bring that value to the market, find someone who's going to pay me to do this, and then hopefully be successful and figure out how to scale. So first, the business model. Well, this was actually probably the easiest part of my journey, because I had two customers, right? Brands and startups. Startups don't have any money, and brands have a ton. So that was really easy. We said, you know what? We'll charge the brands. And in fact, they're the ones who need it, because their world is changing. So they're the ones who really need this technology to stay relevant. So we said, we'll be brand funded. And just to give you some context, a 1-minute advertisement in the 2000 and I think this is from 14 Super Bowl was $9 million. And a ton of brands bought these. Some brands bought multiple. So that was renting space to try to get your attention when you're probably just eating or drunk for $9 million. So the brands had the money. I didn't feel too guilty about trying to tap into it. So great, I know where my money is going to come from. I believe this can be a business. Where am I really going to create value? So the first thing I thought of, well, there's a problem with timing in bringing these two sides together, right? The two sides aren't talking to each other. So I figured, you know what? We can build this business if we bring the two sides together further upstream in the development process. I love this. So when I first started the business 3 years ago, and still today, the majority of brand and startup connections happen around here in the startup life cycle. So, they've got a Series B or C, they're totally scaled, fully funded, they've hired a sales team, and they're starting to they need to monetize, so they start knocking on brand doors. Well, we said, you know what? Let's build a company that moves that a lot earlier. And when the startup's still building their product, when the startup's still figuring out, geez, how am I going to monetize? Why don't we connect them with brands then? Because if they're planning on monetizing against brands in the future, shouldn't they be talking to them while they're developing their product? So we thought it was a no-brainer. So we said, whatever we do, we're going to focus on early stage. Startups that are bootstrapped, startups that have prototypes, startups that are going to go to market in the next couple of months, but are definitely not big and haven't scaled. So the second problem we kind of wanted to solve, where we thought we could create value, was around kind of translation and making sure that the two sides who today were speaking totally different languages could talk to each other better and recognize each other's value. So this is how kind of startups think, and this is how startups present themselves. A lot of them have technical co-founders, so it's very natural. It's what they know. It's what the product is built on. But it's all about code and market plan and patents and design. That's the world that they live in. That's the story they tell investors when they're trying to raise money. This is the story that a brand speaks in. They're storytellers. They're about emotion. Like, this makes sense to them. This is valuable. If this is the Dove Real Beauty campaign. This epitomizes how brands think. So you can see kind of big difference in how the two sides are speaking together. So we said, okay, we're going to help them talk in terms of value creation, what the startup can bring to the consumer in terms of problem solving and emotion and creating that connection and the kind of reach connect effect. How can they better create that connection that the brands so desperately are looking for? So a lot of the startups that we met, when we talked to them kind of upstream, early stage, when we asked them how they were planning on monetizing, they're like, oh, well, like, we're going to sell ads. We'll throw some banners up there and we're going to sell ads. Brands don't need any more ads. Trust me, programmatic buying has solved that problem. We said, but brands do want services and utilities, and they want to help their consumers. So this is an app called Sit or Squat. It's a public restroom finder, and it ranks nearby toilets on their cleanliness and lets you know if it's clean, you should sit. If it's not, you should probably squat. So this app existed, and Charmin actually found this app and engaged in a partnership and actually invested in the startup, and it's now called Charmin Sit or Squat. So sure, Sit or Squat could have, put ads all over this thing for fast food restaurants or anything that's on a map, but instead kind of partnering with Charmin created help for a potty training mom, a mom who's got kids in their potty training, or a family who's on vacation. Charmin saves the day, and they can tell this story about, being there more than just a toilet paper brand. The second thing we did in terms of translation was about how you tell your pitch story. So those images, came from pitch decks that I have seen startups want to present to brands. So we'll go and anytime we work with a startup, one of the first things we do and the most time that I spend in my job is helping them tell their story. So they send us their decks, which usually look like that, a lot of bullet points, and we translate them for them. We say, no, this is how you want to tell the story. So that was value that we could create as part of our business in terms of translating the pitch deck. And then finally, kind of use case of the technology. So probably the most fun I have is when I meet a startup with a certain technology, and immediately, because of my experience working with brands, I can see a new use case for their technology that they would have never imagined, and being able to bring that to a brand. So this is an example of something that we actually did with the brand Sour Patch Kids with a company called Keep. Keep is an in-game advertising rewards network. So Keep is a startup. They're big now, but this was a couple years ago. And when you did something really good, when you got a high score in a mobile game, Keep would reward you with something from a brand. Now, Sour Patch, their brand equity, their story was all about sour moments that turn sweet. So when we partnered with Keep, we said, well, what if you changed your algorithm? And what if instead of every time somebody did something great and got a high score, you rewarded them? What about when they died? When they got the lowest score, they did something super dumb in the game? We could surprise and delight them by serving them a Sour Patch reward. So that's what we did. It was an unbelievable success. We kind of blew through all the benchmarks in terms of redemption rates. And now we kind of created a new stream of monetization for Keep. They can go offer this product to other brands. So that was kind of the third point in kind of translation in terms of how we could develop new use cases. So we had kind of where we felt there was value to be had. How do we actually productize this and ultimately bring it to the brands because they're the ones who have the money to pay us? So we said, well, it's really chaotic for brands. They don't get the startup scene. They don't get technology. That's just a big and bright, shiny object to them. So let's bring some order to the chaos. Let's help brands connect with these startups where we know we can create value. So we developed a process. We created a framework. And we said, all right, we're going to bring brands through this framework, start by teaching them, letting them know this opportunity exists, helping them become more educated, helping them pick the right startup partner, and then helping them go to market. So this is what our plan looks like. And specifically, we created a product, which we call Brand Match, that focuses on these kind of first 3 steps. So it starts with helping them figure out, all right, out of all the technology out there, what's most important to your business? Do you care about retail tech? Maybe. Do you care about video? Maybe. Internet of Things. So don't worry about what kind of TechCrunch says is the new hottest app. Worry about what is important to your consumer and your business. So we start with doing a lot of education. Then we move into helping them evaluate startups within that specific sector that they've chosen. So we came up with an evaluation methodology. We created a database where we can store all the startups that we come across. We created a partnership network of incubators and accelerators where we could source more startups. We do all this evaluation, and we help them pick a startup, the right startup for their brand. You know, what's your sit or squat, brand X. Once they pick the startup, we help them move into market with a pilot test. And to do this, we put a framework of 90 days. We like to say, listen, pick your startup partner, and you have to get into market. You got to do some kind of test or experiment within 90 days. Otherwise, you lose. We're going to walk away. And we do that because brands are notoriously really big, really slow. They want weeks in between meetings to have status calls to talk about meetings and not actually get anything done. And that's a lifetime for a startup. You're out of business. You've pivoted. You're on your 3rd startup by the time they're having their 2nd meeting. So we put a time frame on, and we focus them on kind of iterating this. Test, learn, evolve, try new things. If it fails, try again. And this has kind of became our process and our main product with the goal of ultimately finding scale. So yes, you're not going to find a winner maybe the first time, but our big goal is, can we get one of these brands to invest or acquire or form a strategic partnership and accelerate the startup, kind of be a key partner for them? And what does that look like? Well, it looks like Under Armour, what they've done with the startups that they purchased. So this apparel company that just, sold sports bras has now created a whole digital ecosystem centered on health and fitness, and they have a suite of apps, and I'm sure they'll tie into the Apple Watch. And you better believe that if you're Adidas or you're, Lululemon, and you're in the same category and you're a competitor, you're definitely thinking like, oh shit, did they get something I should have got my hands on? What's mine? So this is kind of this is what we look for. And in terms of timing, we do this whole process in less than 6 months. So we do about 4 weeks from when we get a brief and we help them figure out where they want to focus till we bring them a startup. And then another about, like I said, kind of 90 days, 16 weeks to give them a wrap-up report and tell them how they did once they've been in market. And when we, in terms of like, what does this look like as a product set for my company? Well, we said all brands aren't ready to just jump in and do what I'm talking about and go through this brand match process. So we can start with events. For brands who are looking for motivation and inspiration and think this is an area for them, we'll throw events. For brands who are ready to get in market and test, we'll bring them through our brand match process. And for some brands who are a little bit ahead of the curve, we'll create a whole innovation initiative with them where they'll execute multiple pilots and they'll seek investment in one of those startups. So who are going to be our customers? Well, luckily, because I come from the advertising world, I went and I knocked on the doors of all my clients. We were able to kind of sign 2 big brands to start before we launched as kind of tests. We did it just at cost to barely cover the cost of running the business. but it actually helped create our business. And today, this is just a sample of some of the global brands that we're working with and that we have worked with. And we've been able to kind of put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we do. We connect big brands with early stage startups to solve business challenges. So what's next, right? How do I scale? So if you kind of go through my entire life, my timeline over the past 3 years, I quit my job in June 2011, and it took about 5 months to find our first clients, which were Kraft and Anheuser-Busch InBev. Again, these were existing relationships from the previous brand life. And we finally officially launched, actually that means our website went live, in January 2012. I started building the team. I am on a personal mission to drive more women in technology. So most of my team are girls. Really, there's only kind of 1 or 2 men. And then in January, we kind of started to increase how many clients we worked with. A year later, we had kind of almost doubled that amount of clients that we were working with. I hired a couple more girls. We started to build some technology, so we improved our database. And we want to kind of drink our own Kool-Aid. And if we believe that brands should be working with technology and technology's core, we should be building our own technology. So we did some of that. And now kind of this summer, I'm sort of thinking about, well, what's next? How do we get to the next level? We've bootstrapped the company, so do we go for funding? What are some different products we can build? So that's really where my focus is today. I always try to go back as I'm thinking about how to build my business and focus on my vision, which was technology solutions to business problems. If that's kind of the core vision of the company, we said, all right, well, how do we bring that to market today? It's connecting brands and startups to help them find these technology solutions. But in the future, does it look like leasing out and licensing our database? So every brand can have their own database of startups. We think so, so we're working on that. Right now, like I said, we don't get paid by startups, but could we? I mean, startups ask all the time, listen, can I pay you to help you connect me with a brand? So that's something we were looking at. Could we become like an agency almost and represent entrepreneurs? Possibly. We're thinking about building our own technology in a studio, and maybe we even want to start a fund. I don't know. I don't know anything about investing, but it seems that doesn't really need to be a qualification anymore. So maybe I get in that game, but we'll see. We'll see. So this is where we are today, and I think that's it. Thank you guys so much.
Woo, that was great. Questions? Who wants to get in touch with a big company? No? Okay.
To get into the conversation there, I don't know if I need the mic. How do you, so there's been agencies that have been based in the tech sector for a while, like RGA and what's the other one I'm thinking of right there? But there's a few of them that are kind of doing similar things that have been for decades. How do you compete with those guys? What's your differentiator, if you will?
So I think a lot of what those agencies and companies that mostly play around in the incubator space are very singularly focused, and they're working with brands who sort of know what they want. A lot of the brands that we work with have no idea where to begin. They've really focused on advertising. They recognize that technology is important. They know it's only going to get more important. They'll agree with that. But then I'll say, well, how educated are you? Do you guys, do you know what's out there? Do you know everything that's out there? An incubator will focus on, 10 or 15 or 20 companies, which is awesome. But what if the company that's perfect for you isn't in that incubator? Are you aware? And they'll go, no. Well, how much are you doing? Are you investing? Are you executing? No. Are you being creative? No. Are you keeping pace with your consumer? Are you, if your consumer's adopting new technology, are you there? No. How about your competitor? Are you outpacing your competitor when it comes to technology? No. I get this all the time. So I think there's enough, I don't want to say dumb, but there's enough slow brands that haven't yet figured out how to answer yes to most of these questions that rising tide floats all boats. So we think there's room in the market to start a little bit earlier with education.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Hi. You mentioned before you worked with Pfizer. What could be examples where Pfizer could benefit from your services? In what kind of way?
So I worked with Pfizer when I was at the agency side. I have not worked with them at this company yet. But when I was working with them, I think just the whole kind of healthcare space and things like the quantified self. So that's a really big movement right now where, with Apple Watch and with, Internet of Things and the fact that your chair at work will start to calculate how often you get up and get down. And, you're going to get a buzz if you haven't reached your step goal. Things like that and all that data that's building up. I don't know that a big brand like Pfizer that has a lot of regulations and a lot of things going on normally in their day-to-day business is really paying attention and knows how to plug into that. So I would say for a company like that, I would want to bring them, quantified self, Internet of Things, health and fitness startups to figure out how some of their drugs that are focused on, better nutrition, healthier lives, longer life, would fit into their ecosystem.
And if you had the chance to send a message to, let's say, a friend of mine, who is on global strategy team for multi-channel marketing, what would that message be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say there is a startup soulmate out there for you, and you want to get it before your competitor does.
Great, straightforward, bravo!
Gina, I have a question, sorry, I'm here. Yeah. What is the one, choose a brand that you'd like to help now and how you would like to help it.
These are so good. I guess if I could pick any brand that I could help, I don't know if I could help McDonald's. They need a lot more help. Although, it's really interesting, actually. My co-founder has this idea that McDonald's should have been the ones to create the fuel band. And why was it a health and fitness brand? And what if you walked into a McDonald's and you weren't allowed to buy a burger unless you had hit kind of your fuel goal? So actually, I would say I'm not working with any health and fitness brands. I probably would want to do specifically a health and fitness brand. I'm already working with a pet care brand. That would have been it, because I'm dog obsessed, but we're lucky enough to be working with one, so.
Okay, time for one more. Who has the last chance? All right.
So what would you say is the biggest obstacle or the biggest challenge when you're trying to build a bridge between the startups and the brands?
I definitely think it is the culture at these brands that doesn't reward risk. So you have these brand marketers and these business leaders who are scared to take a risk. They're just kind of want to keep their heads down and not get in any trouble. And they have goals that are, really hard and based on sales. And they look at, last year's numbers and they have to at least hit those numbers or hit, something better. And so for them to kind of pull any budget and even if it's so small and invest in a startup or try something totally different when they have no idea if their test might lead to them losing their job. And instead, I think if corporates start building a culture that rewards individuals and employees for taking risks, and they don't track back to sales. So when you do an experiment with a startup, it should never track back to something like sales. It's too small. You just have to learn. I'd say finding corporates that have that culture or getting corporates to adopt a less risk-adverse culture would be great.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect. Applause. Okay, here we go.
Great. Well, thank you so much for these two wonderful and also quite inspiring talks. Gina and Tristan is the name, right? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. In fact, one reason why I'm here, this may sound a bit stupid actually. Is it moving? No, I don't know. One reason why I'm here is actually to tell you guys a little bit about Pioneers Festival and what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time in Vienna. But now, as we realized first time I was up here, you already know about it. And essentially what's going to happen there is you're going to have 100 hours full of program, just like these two great guests we had here tonight. So thank you, by the way, very much again. And this thing is working backwards, interestingly. Okay, cool. So in the end, what we do in Vienna, for those of you who has been at Pioneers Festival, so I asked who knows about it, but who's been there? So it's not so many. What we do is we take the Imperial Palace of Austria-Hungary, that is luckily big enough to fit about 3,000 to 4,000 people inside. We put a couple of stages in there that are usually not there, and what we do also put inside is about a few thousand startup people, venture capitalists, and also a bunch of corporate representatives. And they essentially spend 2 or 3 days in there. It was 2 days in that place and 1 day before that in a different venue for the competition to discuss future technologies and essentially celebrate entrepreneurship in Europe, but also beyond. We've been doing this, as I said, for 5 years now, so it's the 5th time coming up. This thing really doesn't like me, or I don't like it. And to give you just a few highlights, last year we had this thing down here, which is the first really functioning flying car in the world. That was built in Slovakia, and in fact, I'm not sure whether anybody of you read about it, but it actually crashed last week. Luckily, nothing happened because this thing also has a parachute built in. So not only the pilot came down with a parachute, the whole plane or car, whatever it is, came down with a parachute, so nothing really happened except for the wings probably breaking off on that crash landing. But yeah, we had that as a world premiere at Pioneers Festival. So it was revealed to the world essentially, literally inside the Hofburg, the Imperial Palace in Vienna. And its inaugural flight was actually all supposed to take place last year in Austria because it was actually in Salzburg at the Red Bull air base in the center of the country, and they couldn't fly it over to Vienna. They actually had to put it back on the truck because Austrian regulators didn't want it to fly in Austria, so probably they knew something could happen at some point. Anyway, then also the winner from 2013, who knows her? Urška. Who knows Urška? Anyone? Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying that. So in fact, the funny thing is now, while we, and you're going to see that on one of the next slides then, while we do have startups applying for our competition from tons of countries, the 2 most recent winners are actually from this region. So the winning team from 2014 is Oradian from Croatia, and the winning team from 2013 is Belabit, and they are half Croatian, half Slovenian. So yes, actually we're wondering whether it's going to be a Serbian startup this year. I don't know. Or maybe Slovenian again. Yeah, so after Croatia, of course, has to be Slovenia. Let's see. I really, as we talked about time well spent, time probably is well spent at this event, at least my opinion. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want to give you a quick intro on what we're going to have there next, the week after next week. So that we're going to have the boss of this project here. Who knows that? Hyperloop? Yeah. So Dirk Albon will be with us. He's the guy who actually runs this initiative to make that thing happen in California. We also have Bobak with us, who's a scientist or engineer from NASA who landed the Curiosity rover on Mars. And we have this young gentleman, I actually forgot his name, but he built a robot that he showcased in front of Barack Obama at the age of 16 or something. So this is kind of what our people at the festival team try to do. They really try to bring these very inspiring young and old people together who come to Vienna and tell us about what they do. We'll also have actually the inventor of the first GSM phone. He's 70 plus now, so it's not only for young folks. And yes, at the same time, we also really try to bring these success stories up on stage. Belabit was mentioned. Actually, back then when they won, they were called Baby Watch. And when they left the stage at our competition, they had a meeting right away with somebody from Sequoia. In fact, the only European representative of Sequoia who normally lives in Israel. So they met in Vienna. They actually did not get an investment in the end from them, but they were accepted to Y Combinator, moved to the US, and coming out of Y Combinator got a €3 million investment within half a year after winning Pioneers Festival, meaning the competition there. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we do. I'll skip through those ones. This year, actually, what happened, what we're really happy about is we actually were able to double the number of applications we got from startups. So we normally had always just about 1,000 or just under 1,000 actually. And this year we had more than 1,600 applications coming for the first time from 98 countries. So we even have one application from Cabo Verde, which is not even on the map, I think, or from places like New Zealand. We also have about 250 from the US, by the way, which is pretty good. But obviously still the core is in Europe, let's say. And in fact, so we're going to see the 50 best of these startups now in Vienna competing in a competition on those 2 days, and in fact also the day before that. Yeah, so that's first quick update on why maybe come to Vienna or watch the live stream.
Vienna has really emerged over the last few years into a real active, bristling hub of activities. And Vienna is becoming a magnet for talent, and more companies are coming to Vienna to start their own thing.
There's this atmosphere of something happening, and it's something that you probably see many other places, but here it's much more intense.
We have a fascinating growth and fascinating ecosystem.
There are now events, parties, co-working spaces, all the things you need, and there are investors, which I think makes also a difference.
It's a good place to find the right team to make something happen.
And I think that the media pushed startups more and more, and so there's more awareness right now here. And that's why Vienna is getting kind of a startup city.
Every company with a good project and a good team has big possibilities to get public grants.
I'm from Sweden, and it's really hard to take the first few steps. Here in Vienna, you get support by the government, by organizations and institutions. That's amazing.
The Viennese infrastructure is a perfect combination of international quality with affordable living.
You can go sailing in Vienna, right in the middle of Vienna.
You can go out on every single day of the week. You will always find something going on.
Vienna is somehow becoming the hub, connecting the East with the West.
We have put our epicenter, the epicenter of my sugar in Vienna town, because we love the city.
Give it up. Okay, who wants to go to the Pioneers? Hands up. Okay, just 4 of you? 5? Okay, then we don't need the pitches. So okay, 4 or 5. Okay, so now we'll have the pitches of startup companies who applied, and the best one will get the ticket to visit the festival next in 2 weeks. So. So I'll just put on the slides. Živa, where's the stick? Oh, okay, I'll have it in my pocket. All right. Okay, first one is Messenger. Okay, please take the mic and the remote. Okay. You will have 3 minutes. I will wave you on the last 30 seconds. Okay, and I will. Yeah. You can introduce yourself in the meanwhile, so I'll not get...
Hi, my name is Miha, and I'm one of the co-founders of Messenger. We've been around for almost 1 year. However, we are actively developing the app for only 3 months now.
Okay, what are your hobbies?
My hobbies? For the last 3 months, basically brainstorming and whiteboarding and trying to get developers to work faster.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll skip the question about the family because I'm already
Yeah,
done.
I don't have a dog anymore. Basically, what's really interesting about us is that, as I already said, we are actively developing this application for only 3 months now. Before that, we left the app on Google Play Store for more than 6 months, untouched. We didn't do anything, but the users grow. And currently, we have more than 1 million users, with 6,000 users downloading our app daily. We are present on global scale with the biggest markets within US, Brazil, Mexico, India, Thailand. The biggest penetration rate is in Burma, Myanmar. And we achieved all of these numbers in beta and we achieved it without any funding and without any funds spent in advertising. So I don't think that I need to remind you how big the market really is. We are hanging there with Facebook Messenger, Google Messenger, WhatsApp, then there is Kik and all the others. So the market is really, really enormous, but of course it's always, it's also quite tough. I'm presenting to you Messenger 2.0. We are building an app that will allow users to meet new people in a fun and interesting way, because if you probably use Facebook Messenger, you use WhatsApp, and all these messengers basically force their users to only communicate inside their existing social networks. We want, and we will encourage our users not only to communicate within their existing social network, but go beyond that and meet new people, play simple games with them, which will serve as an easy icebreakers, and then go to chatting, to meeting new people, and beyond. Our team that is pushing this app forward is basically beside me, Dylan. He's my co-founder, he's sitting back there. And I've met him while I was working as a CTO in Sinzilab, and he was there as a head of digital marketing. And later, we invited Mitja, Anže, and Primož to join us. Mitja is one of the best guys to develop APIs. He's working in Node.js, he's a backend programmer. We have Anže as an Android guy, and Primož is the guy if you want to make a system scalable.
30 seconds.
So basically, this is it. If you have any questions, or otherwise you can always find us later on in the crowd, or you can search for us, or just send us an email.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, just wait here. Are there any questions?
I love that you're not afraid to go up against that big of a market and those competitors, so that's awesome. So just to be clear, it's a messenger app and you download it and you talk to your existing contacts, or how are you meeting new people?
Well, we're still in beta. No, but
how will you meet new people?
How we will meet you will come to the app and you will be able to play a game. Where after you finish the game, you can choose whether to start talking to this person or just play another game with someone else. This is basically a random functionality, and we will allow you to import your friends from Facebook, from your contact list, from Google, and so on.
And just one quick follow-up. Are you planning on having any moderation to avoid what happened with like chat roulette, or getting any, as a woman, I'm not sure, just any weird pics?
Yes, we were thinking about it. We are thinking about implementing. I don't know if you maybe use torrent sites to download content.
No, of course not.
Of course, no one uses that. But they have some of them. I've heard they have quite a nice functionality. It's called ratio. So you start with ratio 1, and if you share your content with enough people, your ratio goes up, and otherwise your ratio goes down. And the same thing we want to implement here. Basically, if you send a lot of messages to other people and they don't respond, your ratio should go down. And either you will pay us to use our app, or you will be just blocked.
Thank you. Tristan, you got any question? No? One quick question. All right. Oh,
sorry. I don't know.
All right.
Wait, if I can just, can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yeah. It's because of the live stream. So.
Oh, it's the live stream. Forgot about the live stream. Maybe I missed this, but so that game functionality is that's the catalyst for all those downloads that you got initially?
No.
Okay, so what is, for two questions actually. One, what is driving the downloads, and two, what are the numbers of your active daily user rates? Like, forget about the downloads, but like who's using this on a daily basis?
Actually, the downloads are generated because of very good position in Google Play Store, and because of the word of mouth. I think that we checked today or yesterday, we had around 150,000 shares on Facebook. So it's simply a generic growth, viral growth. And about daily users, we have a really great problems with retention. I think that daily users are around 12,000 that use. So just to answer, we implemented the games. I think that this week, right, Elon? Yeah, 4 days ago, and we see a retention goes up. So
like what I'm not understanding still is what's driving people to I use Messenger, Twitter. Like what's so great about you guys that I'm going to use your Messenger app and not other Messenger apps?
okay, how many Messenger apps do you use?
I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4.
Yeah, why do you use 3 or 4 Messenger apps? They have the same functionality.
Because that's where the people, I go where the people are, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
but
nobody, I've never heard of your app before. I'm not using it. Why would I go and download? Why are people going to your app?
basically, as far as we know, as far as we talked with people, we made some interviews. People are searching for alternatives. They go to Google Play Store. They input Messenger chat, or something else. They find us, or they see a share on Facebook. Their friends are using it, and they're just downloading it and check it for themselves. It's not exactly a science behind it, but our age group is between 13 and 25, mostly. So this age group is quite easy to acquire new things, to try new things.
I have a lot of questions for you.
No.
Yeah.
Just one more question, and then we are it, because we are late on time. Yeah.
What is the secret behind your success in Myanmar, out of all places in this world?
I don't know. No, I think that we got the ball rolling there, so the penetration went up, and
but you don't know why, so you can't repeat it, or is it regulation? I mean, did they block some of the more popular things?
I don't know if they blocked something. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But
if they did, they will block us soon. But yeah,
okay.
It is new markets opening every day.
Yeah.
Recently we are seeing Thailand going up as well.
But there's a small community in Thailand that has links into Myanmar. It's the Muslim population, as far as I understand.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. That was it. Want a big applause? Yeah. Okay, Matej. Where will you take us?
Hi, I'm Matej.
To Thailand.
From GoAvio, and we'd like to help you to find the cheapest low-cost flight and the best one.
Just say hi. Sorry. Where are you going to holidays this year?
We can do it without the presentation. Okay, so let's say that we're going from here, from Ljubljana to Berlin. We're going, for instance, on Skyscanner, type in Ljubljana to Berlin, and the cheapest return ticket that we get is for 380 euros, which is really expensive, right? So let's say this is what Marco did, and he was not happy. He wanted to visit his friend in Berlin, but that kind of went over his budget, so he can't afford it. So there's a solution for him that would find him a cheaper alternative to get to Berlin. This is our website. He types in, I'm going from Ljubljana to Berlin. These are the nearest direct low-cost flights to Berlin. He can see the prices for the whole month. He picks the day that he likes, and he gets a suggestion that he can go from Ljubljana to Zagreb with the shuttle, a Go Opti, and then take a German Wings, which is really popular right now, to Berlin for 93 euros in total. He picks a return flight for 46 euros, 64 euros. And so what we're trying to do is to offer people a cheaper alternative. So in this case, Marco saves 230 euros. And it's not just Ljubljana, Berlin. It's, according to our research, there's about 2,000 of routes like this that we can beat the price on average for 240 euros. And for these routes, there's 300,000 searches per month on Google. So this is the team where there's 3 of us right now. I have about 5 years experience at BizDev and sales. Aliaj already made a similar backend that's calculating buses and trains, how to get the fastest route. And Aliaj is a front-end ninja for 5 years already. So by doing this, we're going to save, on average, 240 euros to 8 million people per year in Europe that are traveling. Thanks.
Woo! Bravo!
Quick question on the numbers. You said 300,000 searches per month on Google times 12 months in the year is not 8 million.
Yeah, because you search much more time. Not everybody searches flights on Google. There are like different distribution channels. Some go to Skyscanner, some to Kayak.
So how do you think you can get 8 million customers to your page? Because I mean, there's hundreds of pages to search for flights. And how do I learn about you?
Well, one thing is Google. The funny thing is that for advertisers like Kayak, Skyscanner, those are very not interesting routes because the results are really expensive and they don't get any conversions. So the cost per click is like 50 or 100 or even more % lower to get the lead on your website. So sort of that's how. And on the other hand, to getting non-qualified leads and just throwing a bunch of people on our website, it turned out that we can do it really cheap. We can reach in these countries in the Balkans and up to Lithuania, if you draw a line up. We can get CPC from 1 to 2 cents per user. That means that we can get 100,000 people for 1,000 euros. So that's the second way.
Okay.
Perfect. Gina.
What's defensible about this? What's to stop one of the existing, competitors from adding in the same kind of feature?
Yeah, well, one of the things I think is arrogance. I've just talked to head of B2B of Skyscanner, and he was like, no, there's no need for that. We've already tried a feature like this at nearby airports. It didn't work, so it's not okay. But I think that it still represents like 2 to 3% or a bit more of the market. So for all of the price lines, which are, for instance, worth 70 billion, it's like, no, we're not going into this business. And I think it's just like, I don't know, people in Edinburgh just sit there in their offices and they don't think about this and they don't make an effort and make a research.
I have an idea for you. I think you should add in content about taking the longer route. So like, is there an awesome sandwich shop at the airport that makes the most amazing something? So, or like, is there an audiobook that you can give as a free download if you have to take the bus? Like if you start to add in content about so it's going to be like agony on Hipmunk. It may be longer, but like we're suggesting 6 things that's going to make your trip amazing on this longer route. And then you could build up the content angle.
That's a good way
to have that one for 1% equity.
Cool. One more? Yeah.
I was going to ask, how are you tackling, are you doing anything to find the lowest price, the most price sensitive users, like students or anything like that? Or
the what?
Like, how are you doing anything to find the most price sensitive users, like students or the audience that would most care about that?
Yeah, we thought that the students and people like this were our target users, but we found out actually like the older people really like our adverts. They share them on Facebook, like 50 plus. So that was a finding.
Yeah, just basically you want, yeah, like you're already saying, you want to find the people who are more willing to make the time money trade-off, where they feel value their time very much.
But on the other hand, the Facebook advertising algorithm is doing that for you. It just serves the adverts to those who click on them. So that's how we reach like 5% CTR or something.
Cool.
Okay, we got time for one more question. No? 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
I'd like to ask, what's the business model here behind? In advertising on the web page or anything else? As affiliate of airlines or what?
Yeah, originally we wanted just to suggest to people and grab some affiliate fees, but the problem is that the low-cost airlines are not giving a penny to you because they just said we're not going to do this, and that's why they have the tickets so low. So what we'll probably have to do is to sell the whole itinerary that you saw, the shuttle plus the flight, show one price, and unfortunately the users that will buy will have to pay more, but as in our margin. But like currently this is the only business model that we came up with.
Okay, bravo. Woo, woo. Next one is AnimaCell. Okay, Luca is with us.
Hi,
Let's go.
My name is Luca. I come from AnimaCell, where we are, as you can read, evolving the veterinary medicine from healing to regenerating. Dogs have become much more than just our pets in the last few years. They have become our family members. And as much as we like our dogs, dogs like moving. They like chasing the ball, they like chasing the cat around their block. Unfortunately, for 30% of all dogs, what happens is they are struck with joint and ligament ailments, such as osteoarthritis, which kills the cells inside the joint and causes extreme pain, swelling, stiffness. In the end, it even causes that the walking is disabled altogether. Until now, there was no solution for this problem. The veterinarian could only prescribe painkillers that had little effect, high expenses, and they didn't do much good. So there are a lot of dogs struggling with that. In Austria, there's 180,000. You can see that in Germany, it's even 1.5 million or even more. And they go to their veterinarians for help. They go to 600 veterinarians in Austria, and they go to 5,000 veterinarians in Germany. Well, now we can help them with these little guys called the stem cells. Stem cells are cells that can divide indefinitely and turn into other type of cells. So this is convenient when the cells are dying off. Another convenient thing is that the stem cells work as small little pharmacy factories inside the joint and help to regenerate the joint for good. Why now? It's a new field of science. We know now it's safe. We have the know-how, and while everybody else is rushing towards the human medicine, we're bringing this into veterinary medicine. Veterinarian takes a small fat tissue sample, sends it to us. We isolate and multiply the cells and prepare them in an injection-ready syringe. That syringe gets shipped to the veterinarian back, and he injects the cells back into the problematic joint. With one application, we get this satisfied customer, and of course, her owner. This is our business model. We get paid from the treatments and from the stem cell bank that the owners put their dog cells in. We did more than 250 treatments already with the horses and dogs, with help of 25 veterinary clinics around Austria, Slovenia, and Croatia. This is the team that does it. The founders, Gregor Majdic from the Veterinary Faculty of Ljubljana, and the bridge, and his opposite in the business, Katarina Čeh. I'm the one struggling in the laboratory with those cells when they don't want to grow, and the team that is working out there in the field meeting the veterinarians. what we need is to go to Pioneers and find 350,000 euro to disrupt this industry that is now about healing and to get it to regenerating. We need it for sales, we need it for end user marketing, we have some ideas, maybe we can get help, and we need the lab research to take things further. Thank you.
Woo.
That was a really great pitch. I'm sure what you do is incredibly complicated, and I have no medical background, but you made it really easy to understand. Do you guys have patents on this stuff? Is anyone else doing it?
Yeah, there are people doing it, but not so many. So we were the 4th company in the world to do this. Unfortunately, it's not patentable. But the thing is, when you go out with a thing like this is saying to the veterinarians that you do miracles. And they will say, no, you don't. We will go back to painkillers. Then you show them that you can do this, and they start to trust you. And to get this trust is really hard. And to get this trust, you have to do 250 animals or more. And when others don't have this, I think this is a big advantage that we have. And thank you for the comments on pitch.
All right. So 2 questions. Compliance-wise, do you have something like the FDA or something to report to get this past clinical trials and stuff like that? And the other is, what is your cost in terms of getting a veterinarian to sort of sign on, and how do you sort of scale beyond this? Because it's really hard, I guess, to keep going to 500 or 600 doctors.
Yeah. Compliance-wise, in Europe, there is no need for any special clinical studies. Since we're using the autologous stem cells. So we're using the stem cells as from the same person to give it back to the same person. And in future, we have seen some regulation preparation, and it's not going that way. The costs to get new clients in terms of veterinarians are quite high. I agree, especially with the first ones, when you have to go by yourself. So it's around 2,500 euro per acquisition customer. But we think this will fall once the word starts spreading. So we're now, because we were a small team and we had limited resources, we went first to the veterinarians because similar as in pharmaceutical companies, they're the ones that say to the owners, this is what you should do. If they don't say that, the owner won't decide. But once a couple of really renowned veterinarians start saying this is what you should do, the customers can go to the veterinarians and ask for the treatment, and they will say, you know what, I have seen Professor Anana doing that in Vienna. And they will say, great, we can offer you the 2, even though they don't have it in portfolio yet, they're calling me to get in.
Okay, cool. One more quick question. No. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we got still time for one more pitch. Doesn't anybody want to go to Pioneers? Ja. 9. Ja, natuurlijk. Okay, that's it. No pitches. So please, for the judges will go outside and decide which one of the 3 pitches will get the check for the entrance of the festival. Okay? And Marcus will introduce us an interesting program. Okay, just a few more embarrassing moments for me to switch the slides. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So now that Gina is gone, I can tell you Pioneers does 2 things. One, by now we also invest. Actually, we started a venture capital fund earlier this year together with our partners from Speed Invest. You've seen the CEO of Speed Invest in the first video. That's Oliver Holle. He and his team actually at Speed Invest raised a new venture capital fund starting last year and actually having the first closing in March this year. They now have available 70 million euros, and part of that, so the seed stage investments, are managed by Pioneers. And as Gina said correctly, you don't need much of a qualification apparently nowadays to do that, but we believe we have it nonetheless. So yeah, if you're looking for seed stage funding, so it's anything up to 100,000, you can turn to Pioneers these days. And if you need more than that, there's Speed Invest. And Speed Invest really is a venture capital fund that happens to be based in Vienna, in Austria, and has a second office in Silicon Valley, but is really targeting or tries to serve startups, especially from Central and Eastern Europe, with a very strong focus, especially on the region that is within a certain reach from Vienna. So that's one comment. The other one is also what Gina was telling you about, bringing startups together with big brands. We at Pioneers do in Europe just as much as she does it in the United States. However, that we mostly don't do it with consumer brands, we mostly do it with technology companies. As you may have noticed, two of our biggest partners over the last few years at Pioneers have been Konica Minolta, so a large Japanese company, and also Cisco. And with both these companies, we've been working together in very different ways, trying to help them finding startup and startup talent here in Europe. In the case of Konica Minolta, we do this in the form of workshops, where we've been inviting startups to actually get together with them and work on the next generation of, for example, office printers, but also to discuss things such as how to get augmented reality embedded in security-related environments in daily work. In the case of Cisco, we actually helped Cisco last year to bring its Entrepreneur in Residence program to Europe for the first time. So it's essentially a late-stage sales-focused accelerator program for startups from Europe. They want to work with Cisco, especially in the IoT field. We're doing this right now for the second time. So there'll be, again, 5 startups being taken into the Cisco EIR program based in Vienna, now at Pioneers Festival in 2 weeks' time. And at the same time, Cisco did something, I think, pretty cool. At the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona this year, they announced together with one more American company, that's Intel, and one European company, that's Deutsche Telekom, that they're going to do pretty much a test run of running an accelerator program together out of their Krakow office. This is the Krakow office of Hubraum, which belongs to Deutsche Telekom, for startups in the IoT space, where essentially the startups that join that Hubraum accelerator program this year will be able to access the customer base and talent and technologies of all 3 companies combined. Is any one of you, by the way, doing something in the field of IoT in a wider sense? Hands up. Anyone? Okay. No IoT in Slovenia. Interesting. Say it again. It's yeah. Beyond that stage. I know. Okay, cool. Anyway, so there's a quick video that the colleagues from Cisco actually would like you to see. And Gina, can you start that video? Probably would be the easiest. Yeah. And by the way, to give you a quick update also on this competition while we're starting the video.
Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Well, we kind of agree with this statement, but not really. Imagination creates big ideas, but knowledge and resources are essential to realize them. And here comes Challenge Up. That's our job, to provide you with knowledge in the most innovative startup contest of 2015. If you represent IoT or related areas, we are waiting especially for you. Join us and make a breakthrough with your idea. But before the big bang, you have to enter the game. Complete the investment teaser and upload a pitch video. From now on, your project is in the game, and you can consult experts and independent mentors about it. The sooner you enter, the better. Give yourself enough time to improve the project. Now, all the projects are being judged to identify 24 startups. The winning startups are invited for 5 days of turbo training to Krakow, including intensive coaching, mentorship sessions, workshops, lectures, as well as the required resources to launch a startup. But only 12 teams will progress. After all the hard work in Krakow, we have a prize for up to 12 startup teams. We will provide you with essential know-how and resources adjusted to your needs to ensure that your project is developed in the most efficient way. And now we take you to the grand finale, the Challenge Up Summit. We will put you in the right place at the right time, show off your skills at this great business-oriented event, and make loads of promising connections. We are the proof of your quality in front of your potential investors. We will give you the knowledge and everything that's needed to kickstart the business. So now, the world belongs to you. Apply now at www.challengeup.eu.
So yeah, apparently we should have done that in Slovenia already 5 years ago because you already did IoT back then and it's now old stuff. Nonetheless, if you know anyone who you think should be applying to this program, there's maybe one little hint why you should tell them about it. The deadline is on 25th May. The second is, I checked only yesterday with the colleagues at Cisco and Deutsche Telekom. We have 2 applications so far from Serbia, 1 from Croatia and 0 from Slovenia. So maybe to, you know, create a little bit of a regional competition out of this here. I think we really should see some Slovenian applications coming in. You want to disconnect me? Oh. All right, yeah. So I think it would be cool if you know IoT startups here around Ljubljana or anywhere else in the country, tell them about it and tell them we need some Slovenian presence in that program. I think it would be great. Okay, cool. So meanwhile, does the jury have a selection made, by the way? Yeah. So what's your choice?
Let's maybe for a short comment. Yeah, come all 3 together on stage. Yeah. First, maybe a few comments about all the 3 startups.
It was a very hard call. Ultimately, we chose Animacell. Yep. But all of them had really great merits. Love to talk to them afterwards as well, but wanted to present this.
Thank you. Great pitch. Good job.
Any comments for or the how the 3 pitches were? Positive expectations?
They were great. I think Messenger, we loved that you weren't afraid to go up against the existing competitors, and I think maybe you haven't figured out why it's working, but you've definitely come onto something. So I think lots of research and figuring out like what that hook is that you've got, and then coming up with a business plan, going to Pioneers, and then next year selling it, getting your funding. But you've definitely stumbled upon something, so love that. I think anything that facilitates people traveling more and having experiences is amazing. And we love that. A lot of competition, so probably want to really carve out how you differentiate, but you're on the right path. And great pitch. And it looked like Animacell kind of had all the pieces in place, and really all you're missing is the funding to be able to get where you need to go. And so hopefully you can present your case and get that funding to just kind of scale and get to the next level. But everyone was great, and it takes a lot of guts to get up here and do that. So awesome job, you guys.
Thank you very much. One more thing, on your seats or the entry of the hall, you got the A4 printed lists with this discount code. So you can still join the festival with 20% off. So this is a good offer. And one more thing. Thank you to our sponsors and co-organizers who made this event possible. So now this is officially over, and let's a little bit mingle and network, and one big applause, and thank you everyone for coming.